Thank you, my dear colleague in the House of Representatives, Congress, past Director Roilo Golez. Good friend, thank you so much for the very kind introduction. Our presiding officer, Chito Santariaga, the other distinguished personalities at the head table. At the very outset, I would like to thank the Rotary Club of Manila for making me your guest speaker today about a very hot topic. And I entitled it, The South China Sea, Geopolitical and Security Situation After the Ruling of the Arbitral Tribunal. This has been an old advocacy for me. In fact, it goes back 1971. I was one of the first to land in our territory in the Spratlys back in 1971, part of the Navy at that time. I was there. I stood up in the halls of Congress when we discovered the supposed temporary shelters set up by China in our Mischief Reef. I overflew in 1999 together with U.S. Congressman Dana Rohrabacher over Mischief Reef to check on the reports that there was a massive construction going on there. And true enough, we found that it was so. And here's a picture of me with Congressman Dana Rohrabacher briefing the House Congress media on our discovery. And of course, this turned out to be the permanent structures on Mischief Reef. In 1999, I delivered a privileged speech where I forecast that China was targeting Scarborough Shoal. That was in 1999, and a lot of people called me at that time alarmist. But of course, this happened, this became true after about 13 years. And now I'd like to talk a little about South China Sea 101. I know that you're familiar with it, but I'd like to talk about some basics of the South China Sea. This is the South China Sea, bordered by China, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and the Philippines. And I would like to stress that the West Philippine Sea is different from the South China Sea, and the two terms are not interchangeable. West Philippine Sea is that part of the South China Sea which we own. The South China Sea remains the South China Sea covering the entire area. And this blue line depicts the exclusive economic zone of the coastal states of the South China Sea. Here's China, this is Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and of course the Philippines. But in 1947, China, at that time under the Kuomintang, declared the 9-dash line, practically claiming the entire about 85 to 90% of the South China Sea in violation of what we now call the UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And this is the reason why we filed a complaint, because they would not budge as far as their claim was concerned. And we filed a complaint, and on July 12, the Arbitral Tribunal made a ruling declaring invalid this 9-dash line, declaring that there are no features inside this Spratlys area and inside our West Philippine Sea that can be considered an island that projects an exclusive economic zone or even a territorial sea. So the ruling pushed back, demolished this 9-dash line. At the same time, it declared that Mischief Reef and Reef Bank or Recto Bank is part of our exclusive economic zone because they are submerged. I'm going to talk about this later. Now, just to show you the comparative sizes of the artificial islands constructed by China near the West Philippine Sea, some within the West Philippine Sea, some outside. Here are the original features. This is Spratlys Island occupied by Vietnam. This is Pag-asa, occupied by the Philippines. This is Ito Aba, occupied by Taiwan. Swallow Reef, occupied by Malaysia, in almost their natural condition, original condition. And this is Fiery Cross Reef. You can see the big difference. This used to be just a dot in the map, but now look at it. It is several times bigger than the original features in the South China Sea. Our runway is only about 1,000 meters. The runway in Fiery Cross is 3,000 meters, and they have a similar runway in Subi as well as also in Mississippi. This is Panganiban of Mississippi. This is Ayungin, where we have the LST, and they are creeping slowly into the Rectoba. Again, I made a prediction that China is after Rectoba, not only because of its strategic condition or location, but also because it's about 8,000 square kilometers, and there are reports that there are very good oil deposits there. This is the Sierra Madre Union Shoal. The Philippines won the arbitration case versus China. I already mentioned that it demolished the 9-dash line. The status of features, that none of the features can be considered an island that would project an EEZ or territorial sea. It also declared unlawful some Chinese action, like for example, interfering in Philippine fishing and petroleum exploration in the Scarborough Shoal area, as well as in the Reed Bank, construction of artificial islands, and failing to prevent Chinese fishermen from fishing in the illegal zones, and also harm to marine environment. The Arbitral Tribunal ruled that the artificial islands destroyed the marine environment. In fact, a marine biologist declared that this is probably the biggest destruction of coral reefs in the history of mankind. Aggravation of disputes, etc., etc. The convention, what does the convention say? Under the UN Convention, the Law of the Sea, a coastal state needs to have land before it can claim rights to the sea. In other words, to project sea, you have to project all the sea of the sea, you have to own land. It cannot be the other way around. You cannot own the sea, you cannot claim the sea without owning an island. And the South China Sea ruling is considered a game changer because of the things that I mentioned. Now, the Philippine Hague victory caused headlines in both local and international news to show you how important it is treated domestically as well as internationally. Headline in the Straits Times of Singapore, headline in Inquirer, Star, and the Manila Bulletin. This is Straits Times of Singapore. And that's Reed Bank. Now, Article 12, National Economy and Patrimony of the Constitution, clearly states, and I quote, "The state shall protect the nation's marine wealth and its archipelagic waters, territorial sea, and exclusive economic zone, and reserve its use and enjoyment exclusively to Filipino citizens." In other words, it is the duty of everyone, especially those in the government, to protect our archipelagic waters, territorial sea, and exclusive economic zone as declared by the Arbitral Tribunal. It is everybody's duty now. Now, here's the West Philippine Sea, and those features that are considered rocks and features that are considered here's the definition. What is an island? An island, as defined by UNCLOS, is a landmass above water at all times that can sustain human life. That is the important consideration. And if it is an island, it has both territorial water, which is 12 nautical miles, and exclusive economic zone, which is 200 nautical miles. A rock is a land permanently above water. This is what you call high tide elevation, but unable to sustain life. That is a situation as far as Scarborough Shoal is concerned, Fiery Cross and other features there. It only has territorial water, but no exclusive economic zone. And then low tide elevation, it is underwater at high tide and protrudes only at low tide. Above water, Only at low tide, it has no maritime rights, no territorial sea, and no exclusive economic zone. And then, of course, under UNCLOS, it is the coastal state that shall have the exclusive right to construct and to authorize and regulate the construction, operation, and use of artificial islands. That should be made very clear. In other words, in the case of the Philippines, since the features are inside the exclusive economic zone of the country, we are the only one that should have the power and the rights to construct anything inside the exclusive economic zone. But you know, this is not just about peace, about territory. I have to talk about the geopolitics of the South China Sea, because it is, in my opinion, a superpower play. Now look at the region, for example. There is no way that we can talk about the South China Sea without relating it to most of the region, the so-called Indo-Pacific region, because of the interrelations there. The South China Sea links the Indian Ocean to the vast Pacific Ocean. It is a choke point. It can control the economy. If you control the South China Sea, you can control the economy of major economic powers like China, Japan, South Korea, and other, India, Pakistan, other countries there. India must pass to the South China Sea to interact with China, Vietnam, the Philippines, Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. And of course, this may come as a shock to many. China suffers, it's a big country, but it suffers from a very vulnerable geography. And for years I've been talking about this in talk shows and speeches. China is surrounded in all directions and has a short coastline compared to its landmass and population. China's naval assets have very restricted maneuvering space, unlike those of India, Japan, which is a very long coastline, Indonesia, even the Philippines, of course, the United States. India's navy can blockade China's trade passing to the Indian Ocean. A small but deadly naval force based in Singapore can paralyze China's seabound trade west of the South China Sea. Vietnamese submarines can wreak havoc on China's merchant marine and even the PLA Navy. A small squadron of Australian submarines positioned in the southern part of the South China Sea can stop China's seaborne trade there. To the east, China can be blocked by Japan, which has a potent navy, a very powerful navy in air force, considered among the most modern and powerful in the world. And this is what I've been talking. This is China. It is surrounded, blocked by Japan in the east, blocked by the Philippines, and blocked by Singapore, and also in the Indian Ocean by India. In other words, it is operating in a restricted area. This is what is called the Malacca dilemma of China. What does it mean? 80% of their oil trade coming to the Persian Gulf and the other parts of the Middle East pass through the Malacca. And you can see this is a narrow area and can be easily blockaded. This has been the dilemma of China. They are very insecure about the situation, and that is why they're trying to push outward. So what is China's response to the choke points? This is what they call the string of pearls strategy. China is now setting up a network of Chinese military and commercial facilities and alliances from the Chinese mainland all the way to the port of Sudan. Here is the string of pearls. You can see that they're trying to set up from the Chinese mainland to Hong Kong, to Thailand, to even Myanmar, then of course Singapore, then it goes to Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and other places I mentioned here, all the way to the Persian Gulf, as well as the Kenya area and Djibouti. That is how extensive the string of pearls that China is trying to set up in order to neutralize and counteract their vulnerabilities and weakness. And there's another item. This is the first island chain and the second island chain. What is this about? The first island chain, this is the first island chain from the Aleutians all the way to the Vietnam area, Malaysia area. This is a part of China's military doctrine, which they must secure and also use to prevent American bases, aircraft carrier groups to enter the first island chain or enable them to break out in order to go to the next target, the second island chain. Their doctrine is to seal off the Yellow Sea, South China Sea, and East China Sea from the threats that surround them.